My dear beloved children, today we will talk about the inner component of your personal purification zone. For more than 5 years you have been learning to get rid of the negative third dimension world programs, cleansing your subconscious from everything dark, alien and non-divine. So now it is time to summarize the things you have already managed and those you still have to handle. And this is what we will start with. Before all, make up a list of your weaknesses, the habits, thoughts and emotions of the third dimension world that are typical just of you. But for this you should be as honest as possible and not indulge in wishful thinking. And believe me, my dear, this list still can be rather long. There can rank your fears you have not eradicated up till the end, your dislike for yourself, desire to judge others and compare them with yourself, emotions of offense, jealousy, pride, melancholy, discontent of yourself and the world, and a lot more. Approach this in a creative way and make up the list so that at the beginning of it there are basic energies that trigger other negative emotions change. Such energies are, for example, fear that breeds a great deal of auxiliary negative emotions such as melancholy, hatred, aggression, while dislike for oneself results in offense, jealousy, envy, guilt, lack of self-confidence. Thus, if you pull your main problem up by the roots, you will not have to work with its derivatives, which will make your task much easier and save you a lot of time. Of course, these years have not passed in vain for you, and someone has just to wipe off the things that have adhered for the last months. That turned out for many of you a durability test indeed, trying your faith and power of spirit, while some others, who have just got acquainted with new knowledge, are to work in a serious and mindful way, employing numerous practices that have been offered on this website for more than 5 years. So, having looked at yourself in an honest and impartial way and having made up the list of the things you are to get rid of, you get down to work. Now, when quite different energies are arriving at Earth incomparable to those you got several years ago, your energy self-improvement work is advancing to quite a distinct stage now. Time is getting inexorably compressed and the new energies facilitate your attending the spiritual school as external students and literally burning down all the remains of the third dimension energies and programs in yourselves. Having invoked the flame of universe love, dissolve one by one according to your list all the third dimension emotions and programs you have not lived through up till the end. Take your time while working and by all means invoke the help of all your heavenly assistants through your meditative seances. It is essential to work thoroughly on each of the emotions or programs remaining in a meditative state until the flow of energy ceases. And at the end of the meditation invoke the energy of ascension so as to fill with it the energy space you have made, dissolving negative things, thereby consolidating the result of your work. Today we will talk about the way you can check the results of your work on alien energies and programs deliverance. First of all, of course, by your reaction to the people and events taking place around you. Yet, my dear, it is of huge importance to track the very first reaction, the very unintentional impulse that triggers all the chain of your thoughts and emotions that follow. Why is it so essential? Because this is what makes the difference between conscious and unconscious reality perception. One who is striving to advance spiritually, having caught oneself at one thought or emotion featuring negative character, starts working at one improvement, dissolving the negative things that arouse in one conscience and, consequently, in one subtle bodies. And this is wonderful. It is conscious perception of reality though. But we are striving for your unconscious reactions to advance to another spiritual level too this time. And this can happen only if you completely purify your subconscious from dual programs of the third dimension world. Of course, my dear, it is extremely hard to remain an imperturbable Buddha amidst the world overwhelmed by chaos and see your relatives and friends being involved into this mass insanity. But this is exactly the experience your ancient soul has chosen, otherwise, you would not have come to Earth during the period so crucial for her. And you should travel this road up till the end and not let your courageous soul down while fulfilling the mission it has assumed. Well, let us move on to practical issues. Suppose You think you have ultimately worked through all the fears, having removed them from your subconscious, and you will face the confirmation, or the other way round, the confutation of this at every turn. Monitor your reaction to any news unexpected for you, no matter if it concerns your relatives, your country, the world, or situation at work. Carefully follow your mind behavior, that of your body and soul, their immediate unconscious reactions. Well, your mind can start throwing in worst-case scenarios right away, and your body shrinking with fear of the unknown, but your soul will start giving you different clues. All this can happen simultaneously, and your task is to immediately switch over to what is to your liking. From the divine point of view, most important is your subtle tuning that in any case of emergency automatically connects you with your soul. It is this thing that can lead your conscience and, consequently, emotions and actions the required way. Bring your emotional condition to a balance and trigger the chain of not dual but divine emanations this time. For this purpose you should train yourselves to concentrate your mind in the heart, in your crystal of love that by means of your soul is connected with other divine aspects of yours. Thereby you will get linked to the Supreme Intelligence, and your actions at all the levels of existence will feature not duality but unipolarity of high dimensions. And this is quite within your depth if you set such a goal and persistently work in this direction. Well, let us go on talking about the way you can monitor your reaction to the things happening around, thereby inspecting the spiritual work you have done. We talked about the importance of the unconscious reactions for you, the ones that will trigger the chain of not dual but divine emanations this time. But since this is the final ideal result of the present stage of your spiritual development, that is rather hard to achieve right away. Today we will look into its stages that will gradually lead your way to the desired goal. The first stage is the understanding of your reaction to someone or something being different from the one you would like it to be. As a rule, such a clue is provided by your soul as a feeling of psychological discomfort. Sometimes you can even fail to understand the reason for it, but if you analyze your previous words and actions honestly and impartially, you will understand the reason for your disharmonious condition. You are likely to have responded in an inadequate way to someone's words or behavior. In an inadequate way from the point of view of someone who has already broken free from the metes and bounds of the third dimension mentality. In this way your soul prompts you that this time you failed to pass the test on spiritual maturity in an appropriate way. So, the next step can be the analysis of your qualities so as to understand which exactly of the negative emotions or programs you have not worked thoroughly at showed and what you still have to work at. Quite often what causes an argument is one pride when one is trying to make one point whatever it takes. And sometimes it can be weakness and lack of self-confidence that shows in verbal aggression as a protective reaction to the opinion opposite to yours. In some cases your interlocutor starts getting annoyed and irritated because of your inability to formulate your idea in a clear and comprehensible way. It can also be outrageous self-confidence or, on the contrary, lack of confidence in what you are saying, hurt pride, powerlessness to persuade others in something. As you see, reasons can be numerous, and you should understand which of them has resulted in the undesired effect, or, maybe, there were several reasons. After you have figured out the enemy in your own camp, work at your relationships with them in a meditation, having invoked the flame of universe love, and act like this every time when you get the feeling of any discomfort in your soul. Just this way, step by step, you can free your conscience and subconscious from all the third dimension patterns as well as emotions and programs connected with them. Talk about psychosomatics, but we'll study this phenomenon in a broader way from the energy point of view. The fact that psychosomatics arose as a science, or rather as an esoteric branch, is great progress on the way to self-healing. Of course, This knowledge is to be used by few so far because all their life people are used to searching for the causes of their illness wherever except in themselves. That is why the use of psychosomatics in healing is now only possible with prepared people whose heart is open to new knowledge and whose intuition prompts that the causes of all one's problems should be first of all searched for in oneself. And today we will follow the way the energy chain works from the moment of identification of a psychosomatic reason of a disease to complete recovery. Let us have a case study of a person who has cancer. Let it be prostate gland cancer in this case that is quite common these days. What is this gland responsible for from the energy point of view? It synthesizes masculine force in all its manifestations, or, in other words, it is the energy of masculine principle. I have already offered you a series of messages on human feminine and masculine principles significance that are a guarantee of a person happy and harmonious life. While the balance in this field being tipped in favor of either side is fraught with serious consequences, both psychic and physical ones. An imbalance like this is a common sight at present since society itself imposes unnatural life values on people that ruin innate divine principles of self-manifestation. As a result of all this, men become womanly and women become manly, thereby depriving themselves of the opportunity to feel their genuine essence to a full extent and enjoy what they are granted by nature. At the subtle level it shows as a lockup of most important vital energy channels. Why does it happen? Before all, because of the mismatch of human thought forms and vital functions of the body. Since any thought is eventually material, that is, the energy it is imbued with gradually descends to the physical level. As a result, your body organ that is directly connected with it starts to be affected, and sometimes it is not even a certain thought of a person but their entire style of behavior inconsistent with the divine programs they initially feature. In this case there begin to take place gradual changes in the energy of specific organs and even their biological composition, that is, the harmonious correlation between the body and the emotional background one finds oneself and gets interfered in. You're likely to notice how woman-like gets the body of a man who has lost his innate masculine qualities. And this is exactly a glaring example of energy imbalance of the body, the result of a man's thoughts, emotions and actions being ill-matched to his inborn natural qualities. But let us come back to the prostate gland cancer. Classical medicine will name a lot of causes for it to arise, but never will it mention the loss of inborn divine qualities under the influence of deformed modern society that kills masculinity in men and femininity in women. That is why the treatment includes surgical operation and chemotherapy. A lot of patients recover though and even go on living for quite a while, but ablation of this gland at the energy level results in destructive consequences indeed, as it deprives a person of one of the most essential organs conveying the divine code of the masculine principle and, consequently, makes one even more depersonalized. How you can learn to interact with different people, both with those at the same vibration wave with you and those whose vibrations are much lower than yours. Why do I pay so much attention to this? Only because it determines the maintenance of your own vibrations at the appropriate level, the thing you all should strive for, since their stability is a guarantee of your transition to a new dimension. And while communicating with the people who are at one vibration level with you, you replenish each other in terms of energy, as well as all the space around you. With the people of low vibrations you should behave very cautiously so as not to do any harm either to them or to yourselves and, by and large, to everybody around. Let us consider what happens at the subtle level when two persons meet whose vibrations differ a lot. For example, one person vibrates at the 6th chakra, while the other at the 3rd one. As you already know, the higher one vibrations are, the more rarefied their subtle bodies become, and, on the contrary, the lower one vibrations become, the denser they get. Well, What happens in terms of energy when two persons like this find themselves next to each other? Their interaction can actually vary greatly depending on the behavior of each of them. So now we will look into all the possible variants of their influence on each other. First variant: both of them feel irritation towards each other by intuition, perceiving their energy inconsistence. There appears some kind of a wall of the energy of rejection. This way the protective reaction of either of them shows. And since this energy features duality, it is not divine but low vibration one. As a result, the one with low vibrations remains at their level or even falls lower, while the other one with high vibrations inevitably decreases them, interacting with the wall of rejection they created themselves. Therefore, even if these people interact in some way, the contact will feature quite low energy profile with a touch of their mutual hostility. And by intuition people always feel it. This is the reason why you seldom manage to convert to your religion. Your friends and relatives, sometimes they cannot explain to themselves why they feel like to reject your seemingly right and convincing words. And the thing is that cutting yourself off from their low energy by intuition, you unintentionally make an energy wall that eventually grows into a blind wall of incomprehension. And this lack of understanding becomes worse, growing thick like a snowball, and you start pelting each other with offensive words, as a result of which your own vibrations decrease up till the level of your interlocutor this time. And while for them such emotions are usual and sometimes welcome, for you they are pernicious indeed, because you lose everything you have gained for many months and sometimes years. Of course, you can recover by means of different practices and meditations, but, anyway, each energy breakdown like this throws you back and you waste precious time you could have spent in quite a distinct way for the greater good of yourself and your planet. That is why, my dear, before you start a conversation with a person ignorant of the issue, with their vibrations being knowingly lower than yours, remember about the consequences of such communication for yourself and initiate a talk only if you are sure you will be able to create favorable conditions for it, having figured out the right approach to this person. Well, let us go on talking about the interaction of two people featuring different vibrations. Now let us study the second variant of such interaction. This time the person vibrating at the sixth chakra is perfectly aware of their responsibility for themselves and their interlocutor, and does everything possible not only to maintain their own vibrations at the appropriate level but also to try to increase their interlocutor vibrations from the third chakra at least to the fourth one, and, which is even better, to the fifth chakra. What can they do for this? Before all, to take another person as they are not making any judgment or valuation in their respect. Even if you know and understand everything about them, treat them as elders do their younger ones, and let your approach of an elder mean not looking down on them from the height of your spiritual superiority, but a wise and loving look of a friend who understands that everyone travels their road in a different way. It is quite possible that, unlike you who have experienced hundreds and maybe thousands of incarnations in various worlds, your interlocutor is a young and unexperienced soul indeed, whose spiritual journey has just begun. You will not blame a child for being small and unable to read yet. You're likely to do your best to teach them to read instead, so that they have as soon as possible new horizons open for them, and they will be able to plunge into the magic world of fairy tales and adventures themselves. The same way you can open a new world and new opportunities to a person who has just begun to develop spiritually. But unlike a child, they have had time to acquire patterns, stereotypes and habits typical of the third dimension world man. They are not plasticine anymore like a small child that you can mold a personality with, but quite a mature adult firmly standing for their views. That is why for a start you should make it softer and, of course, You can do it by means of energy only. Fill them and all the space around you with the energy of love and light. For this purpose, a recent practice magic blanket will also be handy. You can also make use of any other practice you like for purifying of human conscience and energy space from all kinds of negative energies and third dimension world programs. The next step will be leveling of your vibrations. To implement this, you should imagine yourself and your interlocutor as energy silhouettes and create around you a sphere filled with the energy of ascension. This universal and very gentle energy can work miracles, dissolving all low vibration energies and at the same time changing human conscience, freeing it from the third dimension world programs. And only after you have realized that the high vibration field created by you soften the dense aura of your interlocutor, you can carefully and considerately put out feelers so as to estimate the amount of new information you can convey to them about what is actually in progress on Earth now. Depending on their reaction, you can adjust your actions, smoothing contradictions and bypassing the issues they are not prepared for yet. This way, in no rush but with love and understanding, you can sculpture a new spiritually advanced person image, not speeding up the situation, sometimes even ceasing your communication, giving them opportunity to learn the material new to them. This is the only way, my dear, you can save yourself and a close person from irritation, mutual disappointment, and sometimes from serious arguments that can bring to both of you nothing but suffering. As a follow-up to 2 previous messages, today we will look into the third variant of the interaction of the people at the different levels of vibrations. And this time let us take the so-called neutral variant, when both the persons follow their own way, almost not interacting either in terms of energy or words. Feeling their vibration inconsistence, they by intuition stand aside, having no negative emotions at that. This way their feeling of self-defense from alien energies goes off. This is the variant that is most common when 2 strangers are at issue. In this case there occurs unintentional energy self-isolation. Between them there arises the very energy wall, but since it has no vivid emotional touch, it just acts as an invisible partition separating low vibrations from high ones. It is the very case when one who has broken free by one conscience from the third dimension world becomes almost invisible for low vibration creatures. For one part, one has no negative feelings in their respect, while the latter cannot reach one in terms of vibrations and, consequently, are unable to break through this wall or intrude into one energy space. Well, which variant of the 3 mentioned above is the best one? Of course, the first variant of mutual rejection is the least desirable because it is destructive for both of the partners. The second variant will suit those whose vibrations are high enough to contact any person with no detriment to oneself irrespective of their vibrations. Such a person can set harmony over their common energy space, which will protect one and one interlocutor from energy fall. But if, my dear, so far you do not feel strong, wise or aware enough to realize that any living being in the universe has the right for life and exists at their own stage of spiritual development, you had better stick to the third variant, neutral attitude to the people of low vibrations. Learn not to react to them emotionally, condemn them or feel superior to them, which will inevitably decrease your own vibrations. Let them become invisible for you, and then you will become for them as invisible. Nowadays on your planet there is in progress stratification according to vibrations as fast as to give you soon the feeling of existing in parallel worlds with many of those you knew before, with even your friends and relatives being among them. Yet, the stratification should not become hostile or frightening. Take it as inevitability, as each person's own choice. And if you see that someone persists in their beliefs, not willing to change, let them do it and move on your own way, not staying too long or getting emotionally involved into other people's problems. This is the only way for you to maintain the appropriate level of your vibrations and, consequently, to attract other people spiritual consistent with you who are at the same vibration wave with you. Today I would like to move on to the fourth point of the plan of actions for your prompt passing the stages of your spiritual road. You should understand that the process of your improvement is endless, therefore you should always watch over yourself. Treat yourself mindfully because you will have to withstand durability tests over and over again that will be arranged for you by your nearest and dearest. So now it is time to talk about your energy space protection, not from external influence but from you yourself, that is, your ego and habits you have gained over years. And it is perhaps the stumbling stone for many of you on your spiritual way. Why is it so hard for you to get rid of your bad habits? Before all, because you do not notice them as they have already turned into your second nature. Let us cite, for example, the habit of taking care of your close people, which from a third dimension world person point of view is considered to be a wonderful quality. Well, what hides behind this seemingly good habit? Many people, and especially women, got so used to exercising control over their family that they even do not take any notice of it. As a result, the following processes occur at the energy level: striving to know everything about each step of their son or daughter, husband or wife, their parents, friends or colleagues. Such people are always within their field, impudently intruding into other person's energy space. And even if the purpose of such intrusion is care and desire to help them, save from something, make their life easier, nevertheless, this is the violence of the law of the free will. And here is a reason for this. It seems to these people that it is them who know what and how others should do, what will be better for them, healthier, safer, more beneficial. As a result, there is suppression of the personality of the one who is always attempted to help, having no chances to make decisions independently and get one's own experience. For even if the experience will be negative, it will be one-on-one, not somebody else. Moreover, in such relationships there is unceasing energy interaction, which leads to rather regrettable consequences, since it means depersonalization of the one whose emotions, thoughts and actions are always controlled. One energy space becomes a permanent residence for somebody else's energy and, which is even more regrettable, somebody else's karma. So, for example, if one is destined to successfully implement the plan conceived and somebody in one environment relying on their own experience opposes it, the whole scenario of one life will take the wrong turn, not the one the person was destined to. Unfortunately, in the third dimension world it happens quite often. For instance, parents often choose a career for their children, spouses, country to live in, accommodation and many more, being guided by the best considerations from their point of view but actually ruining their life. Why have I cited just this example? Because it is the case that allows to understand perfectly well the motives of actions of both those who intervene into another person's destiny and those who accept such help. This is the case of cross-influence on each other and at the same time the influence of a person's inner qualities on themselves and, consequently, on their spiritual progress. Thus, a patron or supervisor constantly imposing their opinion on another person supports their ego and pride, while the one who submits shows lack of strength and confidence in oneself. As a result, both of them violate the law of the free will, the former by imposing their will on the other, while the latter one by being afraid of showing it. And, generally speaking, both the former and the latter are guided by fear in its different manifestations. The former person features the fear of losing control over close people, and the latter one the fear of making independent decisions. As you see, my dear, any negative energy or unbalanced thought is based on fear that breeds lack of belief in oneself and people around, which, in the long run, leads to negative consequences. Today we will go on talking about the influence on your energy space produced by your own inner traits. Perhaps, many of you have noticed that no matter how powerful the protective shield that you set over yourself is, sometimes it does not work. And most often the reason is that your negative emotions and third dimension world programs break it through from inside. So, now it is you who become the cause of your vibrations decrease. Unfortunately, Not many people can confess this, since an ordinary person tends to search for the causes of their problems and troubles outside themselves. Yet, you, my dear, are not ordinary people anymore who think in the categories of the third dimension world, but those who are striving to live in a new way in accordance with the laws of the universe, not with those of the dual world. That is why today I will tell you how you can tell inner energy influence on you from the outer one. The first sign of your inharmonious condition having been caused by your own negative emotions is that you get a feeling of inexplicable worry or even grief. This way your soul responds to any actions of yours that go beyond the frames of the universe laws. And even your concern about your family is the case, because it features discredit to the higher powers, allowing the energy of fear both into your own aura and the aura of the person you are worried about. Learn to respond keenly to the slightest nuances of your soul manifestations, because it always tries to get through to you and to give you some clue or a hint if you stumbled. Do know that if you feel sick at heart, this sickness is most likely to be your own thoughts, emotions or actions. And when you are peaceful at heart, it means you live in harmony with yourself, the people and world around you, not violating any of the laws of the universe. Human soul is their divine tuning fork and the most reliable assistant, which is reflected in such expressions as "my soul rejoices," "it makes my heart soar," "it feeds my soul," or "my soul is sore, I have a heavy heart." These different conditions of your soul reflect your own qualities and emotions and, consequently, make inner impact on your energy space. The second sign of your energy shield having been broken from within is worsening of your physical condition. It can be unbalanced rather than unhealthy. One becomes absent-minded, inattentive, and it is difficult to concentrate on what one is doing. Sometimes one feels one has done or said something wrong but cannot identify the reason of one anxiety. Well, what should you do if you get such kind of feelings? First of all, be happy that you feel them. It means that your soul has not become hardened but keenly responds to any inharmonious action of yours and, which is the most valuable, closely interacts with you, giving you such clues. And then you should inspect all your recent thoughts, emotions and actions that you have to consider from the perspective of one who has already broken free from the metes and bounds of the third dimension reality. And, of course, look at everything impartially and honestly, not searching for excuses for yourself but to learn the lesson of the things happened so as not to repeat it over and over again. While if the cause of your lack of peace of mind is relationships with other people, apologize to them and do not be afraid to seem weak. It is actually display of power, since confessing one mistake is a deed worth respect. And learn to forgive yourself, taking your mistakes as experience of life in the third dimension world. Do not blame yourself for them and move on your spiritual way, trying not to repeat them again. Be generous to yourself and others, and it will be repaid 100-fold. Fifth point of your plan on the fast leaving of the third dimension matrix can become the rearrangement of life priorities. What do I mean by this expression? Before all, it is reconsideration of what is really important in your life and what you can throw away out of it with no regret, thereby freeing your thoughts and making time for spiritual work at yourself. As far as time is concerned, I think everything is clear. But it is quite hard to free your thoughts from the rubbish that the third dimension matrix you still live in literally swarms with. Yet, believe me, my dear, where there is a will, there is a way. Just the fact that you will stop watching TV and limit surfing the net as much as possible will already make a lot of time that you can use for meditations, walking in the country, communication with children and like-minded people. Moreover, you should learn to readjust your thoughts the positive way, which will also encourage your vibrations increase, as well as improvement of your physical and psychic condition. As you know, any negative thought or emotion triggers the pernicious chain of the energies harmful to you that, having settled in your subtle bodies, start their destructive activity, influencing both your psyche and physical body. Therefore, having chosen a suitable practice that you are quite able to invent yourself, Scan your thoughts in the very beginning, preventing them from looming large and filling your energy space. Try to exclude from your life negative-minded people who, as a rule, turn out to be energy vampires. But if you do not have such an opportunity, do not forget about energy protective shield that you should renew several times during the day so far. And now let us come back to life priorities. You should approach this issue quite seriously, and it is advisable to make a list of what makes your top priority right now. First of all, you should identify purposes and goals of your soul that will result in all the rest, means of achieving them in terms of your present opportunities. Of course, this plan should be quite realistic, that is, efficient. While in your meditations and just in dreams you can visualize life on New Earth, your life priorities should include certain steps that will promote your dreams coming true. It can be anything: spreading of true information about the actual events among your close people, initiating of petitions, or participating in protest actions against the absurd rules of behavior imposed on you. But your participating in global changes on Earth is as important, which facilitates the changes in alignment of forces on your planet and promotes the victory of light over dark. Thus, your life priorities should take into account your spiritual work both at the physical and subtle level, since they are inseparable from each other. Yet, the former and the latter kind of work is supposed to be based on constructive principles, not those of destruction that features negative energies. Even in the case of demolishing system of society control that has already had its days, say goodbye to the system and to those who created it with no anger or aggression, and be thankful to them, for they have helped you to separate the husk from the grain and get aware of your genuine essence and your divine mission. We move on to the sixth point of your plan on self-realization and spiritual development. Now you are to learn to create the space of the fifth dimension around yourself, physically still living in the third one. If you manage to cover successfully the previous points of your plan, it can be said you are on your way to this now. So this time you will only have to consolidate the results of your work at yourself so as to maintain your vibrations at the appropriate level all the time. And this is, perhaps, the most difficult thing for you. It is mostly explained by the fact that the life of man in the third dimension world is unpredictable. Unless you are in complete solitude, every day society provides you with more and more surprises. And it is especially true about the current situation on Earth, when the struggle between the light and the dark forces have reached its final stage. The cornered representatives of the deep state still try to bring to a head the conceived, making stricter the safety measures to navigate the false pandemic they contrived themselves by thrusting the harmful vaccination on people. It is this thing that became for most of you the crucial test in your spiritual maturity. For what is at issue this time is not life or death of the physical body, but the existence of your divine soul. Never has humanity faced such a choice. That is why if you can realize its depth and profoundness to a full extent. But those who succeeded in doing this are going up till the end, despite the traps awaiting them at every turn, as numerous encroachments of rights and freedoms in respect of the people who refuse to vaccinate is gross as dismiss from work and deprival of livelihood. A great challenge for many of you is protecting of your children from the arbitrary law of authorities and inhumane experiments on them. The things you are living through right now can be called Armageddon indeed, which has been the case on your planet more than once. Some civilizations perished, others came into being, but nobody has ever attempted the human soul, trying to deprive it of its divine principle. This appalling experiment on people was the very last thing that made the cup run over in terms of the light forces and your galaxy family. All of them have been there to help people to perform transition to the fifth dimension with Earth in a proper manner. But everyone should start this process with themselves. As often as possible, apply for help to the higher powers, angels, archangels, your galaxy brothers and sisters. Ask them to support you during this hard period of transition when you have to fight with the dark forces at the subtle and physical levels. They always hear you, and their help cannot be overestimated. Indeed, it is them who help you sustain belief in yourself and maintain your vibration high. They scan each revived soul and provide it with a life belt every time they see it is about to drown, which is inevitable in the conditions as hard as those you find yourselves in now. This way together you, by your regular laborious work at yourself and your heavenly assistance by their invisible presence in your life, you create the space of the fifth dimension on Earth that gradually is spreading all across the globe. As a result, everybody who gets into this space starts changing. Their conscience is getting purified from the third dimension world programs, and people are provided with your example of how peacefully and happily one can live in this absurd, agitated world, not becoming emotionally involved in it but just watching the things taking place from a distance, which enables to remain pure and free from its stereotypes, patterns and conditionality. And the more there are such islands of freedom on Earth filled with the energies of highest vibrations, the sooner humanity will move to a new era that is already asserting itself on your planet. Today we move on to the last seventh point of your plan on prompt leaving of the third dimension matrix and acquiring the vibrations necessary for transition. And it is in that you learn to resist any influence directed at you, both for the side of authorities and anyone whose conscience is under control of the third dimension world and is totally ruled by the current system. Your conscience has already left the frames of the third dimension world, as now you can consider all the processes that are taking place on Earth as a whole, that is, taking into account their political, social, psychological and energy aspects. You see the entire picture in general, all its cause-effect ties, and regard yourself not as a separate unit but as a being inseparably connected with the current processes on Earth, who came here with a certain mission, to perform transition yourself and help others with this. This is the reason why you become invulnerable in respect of authorities. You possess the very rod that the best human qualities are threaded on: love and respect to oneself, belief in your potential and dignity, intrepidity and ability to protect your interests with no aggression or condemn but wisely and calmly. You are the very rock that the waves of indignation, aggression, powerlessness and fear get crashed against, the ones in plenty splashing around you. Moreover, you are constantly under protection of the light forces and your galaxy family, who help you not to lose your heart in dire straits and keep your vibrations high. You cannot be humiliated by anything or anybody, since you become invulnerable for the low energies of fear, control or aggression. Perhaps you have noticed the different way authorized officials treat those who are afraid of them and those who preserve dignity and display respect to honest selves and others. Scanning of a person's energies occurs at the subconscious level. That is why people are often unaware why they speak to one person in a rude manner and politely to another one. Everything is actually easy to explain. The high vibrations of a person featuring self-respect cannot attract rudeness or disregard, and fear, being the energy of lowest vibrations, inevitably attracts aggression. This is exactly the reason, my dear, why I repeat you over and over again. Your main task right now is maintaining of your vibrations at the appropriate level. Not only will it help you in terms of long-term perspective of transition, but in momentary perturbations connected with the so-called pandemic. Just by the fact of your presence you will change the reality around you, dissolving negative energies in the subtle bodies of the people surrounding you, and, consequently, changing their attitude to you. Treat everyone on your way with respect and consideration, and then their heart will soften and they will get surprised themselves with the kindness and indulgence they treat you. And, of course, do not forget about humor, one of the most divine energies in the universe. A sincere smile and a timely joke sometimes can do much more than a long and boring negotiation with authorities and declaring of one's rights. Learn to scan people energy profiles and evaluate the situation soundly so as to work out a plan of actions immediately. as well as to estimate the boundaries not to be crossed. Learn to let the situation free when it is appropriate and to act resolutely when life and safety of people depend on your decision. Let your inner rod remaining flexible still preserve firmness and durability typical of a self-sufficient and self-respecting person.